Howdy. My name is Nonat, and welcome to another new type of video that I'm doing instead of making Inventor Part 2. Inventor Part 2 is coming, y'all. It's just gonna be a massive video, and I haven't had the time to hunker down and make it yet.
But hey, you should probably subscribe just so you don't miss it when it goes live, okay?
Today's video is going to be short and sweet. We're just going to be talking about an amazing monster from one of the Pathfinder 2e bestiaries. There's not really much else to say, so we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. No 5-minute intro this time, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes, at low levels, it's really difficult to come up with an interesting boss for like the end of a chapter of your campaign. Not your big bad evil guy, but just a one-off boss that you want to be memorable, but you also don't want it to be super crazy over the top. You know, the campaign just started, they're level 3, they shouldn't be fighting a lich. Unless you want to run it that way, I don't know, if you want to, go ahead. Sure, you can go classic. A bandit leader, a goblin war chief, or just an ogre are all fantastic, tried and true options for the early game boss. But why not try something crazy, unique, and totally unexpected, and you can build a whole chapter of your campaign around it? That's where today's amazing monster comes into play. This creature can either be a quick one-shot encounter, the end of a whole one-shot adventure, or even, like I said, the boss of maybe the first chapter of your whole campaign. Because of this creature's ability to create its own minions, you can even create this whole dungeon fraught with danger that your players must navigate. Today, we're talking about the Grimstalker. So, what is a Grimstalker? Well, the Grimstalker is a fey creature. A fey creature whose only goal in life is the complete eradication of anything that threatens nature itself, namely humanoids. True to their name, the Grimstalker sneaks through the forest, ambushes, murders, and strings up any creature unlucky enough to encounter one. These targets are usually hunters or lumberjacks for nearby towns. The Grimstalker accomplishes this deed thanks to its passive ability, Camouflage. This allows the Grimstalker, so long as they are in a natural environment, to hide without cover. This means that, just like the players who don't understand how to use the hide skill, the Grimstalker can just hide and disappear from sight. Combine this with a plus 13 stealth bonus and its woodland stride ability, allowing it to ignore difficult terrain caused by plants, and this thing can vanish and sneak around the battlefield completely unimpeded. The Grimstalker's melee attacks are no joke. While the base damage is average at best, 2d6 plus 7, it's the Grimstalker's sap that's really going to get you. With a DC 22 fortitude save against it, this poison is really tough for the more fragile party members to resist. Not only does it deal 1d6 poison damage every round, but once it reaches its second stage, it inflicts the Clumsy condition. This reduces your armor class by 1, by 2 once it reaches the third stage, making you even easier to hit and that much more susceptible to a plus 10 critical hit. With all of that, the Grimstalker can easily go one by one, wiping out your team one person at a time. Now, its spellcasting abilities... Did I mention this thing can cast spells? Its spellcasting abilities exist primarily to slow down your frontline melee fighters so it can leap onto your backline and take out the more fragile characters first. Its main tactic will almost always be to use Wall of Thorns and split the party. This creates a massive wall of difficult terrain, and anyone who moves through this difficult terrain takes 3d4 piercing damage. Not the Grimstalker, though. Thanks to its Woodland Stride passive, it can walk right through the Wall of Thorns without taking damage. And with its 40-foot move speed, it can collapse on your wizard pretty easily. It can also cast Entangle to slow down immediate threats like a barbarian or a fighter, and worst case scenario, it always has access to a level 3 Tanglefoot cantrip. Now, if you beat this thing down and its life starts feeling threatened, it does have a few pretty solid escape options. First off, with its 40-foot land speed, you're gonna have a hard time catching this thing if you're not a monk or a swashbuckler. But on top of that, it has one final spell that can make its escape almost assured. Tree Shape. For 2 simple actions, the Grimstalker can just transform into a tree for 8 hours, and no perception check will reveal its location. So long as there's actual other trees around it. If this happens, the only way to identify a Grimstalker tree is with a DC 22 nature or survival check while in its vicinity. If you're nowhere near this thing, even if you succeed at that check, there's no finding this thing. All of this already leads to a terrifying boss fight for a low-level party. But now let's talk about my favorite part of the Grimstalker. Grimstalkers are incredibly territorial and protective of nature. For this reason, they will go out of their way to collect and harvest the seeds of hostile plant life, such as assassin vines. It will plant these seeds all throughout its territory to deter invaders, and anyone who happens to walk into a Grimstalker's territory will likely be eviscerated by the carnivorous plant life around them. Even more terrifying than that, and a great way to introduce the Grimstalker, is that they often take this strategy outside of their own territory. Once the Grimstalker has successfully defended its own territory, it will take any leftover seeds and silently sneak into the gardens and farms of civilizations. There, it will silently plant these aggressive seedlings, and with no idea what's coming, these poor farmers and gardeners will be critically injured or possibly even killed by this plant life right in their backyard. But what do you think about the Grimstalker? Would you love to encounter this thing in one of your campaigns, or do you plan to use it against your players in a future session or a future campaign? Let me know down in the comments. Personally, I love the fact that a single creature has so much plot potential written right into its description. I mean, even if you didn't use this as a boss, a level 5 or 6 campaign could encounter a group of these, because sometimes they do travel in groups, and that would still prove a very dangerous encounter. It's just an overall terrifying beast. I want to give a huge shout out to my amazing patrons who support me every single month. If you would also like to support the channel financially, there is a link to my Patreon right in the description. We also have a community Discord that is still growing every single day with over 500 members right now. It's a great place to chill, talk about Pathfinder, and a bunch of other random crap whenever we just decide to chill in the hangout. Also, a shout out to Bobby Rarin Zapita for pointing this monster out to me. I had totally overlooked it before and didn't realize just how cool it was. Let me know down in the comments if there's any more sort of overlooked creatures you would like to see me talk about. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and until next time, no nat ones.